Hello, everyone. We are live here on The Journey on YouTube. For those of you on TikTok, please come join the other half of this conversation with Maureen Robinson. We are talking about breath work. So I just want to say thank you guys for being here. Thank you for all of you that are stepping into place. Those of you on TikTok, thank you for joining us on YouTube. And good morning, Cats, Purple Princess, Alex, Diane. How is everybody today? I hope you guys are doing well. Mo, how are you? What's going on?
That's good. I'm
Welcome
great.
Back.
Yeah, I'm glad we're past all that eclipse business and stuff, but that big one that went through, that was a biggie. It was good. I'm glad we're talking about breath work, because breath work was like the baseline of everything on that.
It really I don't know about you guys, but I had my big interruption night was the night before. So the night leading up to it, I was like bouncing off the walls, you know, and you're like, oh, I'm so tired. And you're like, yeah, bedtime, let's go. And then you get to bed, you're like, nope, not happening.
The moon is cool. I could digress off our topic so quickly about that. When we used to have
digress a little.
Right? When we had the cafe at the hospital, we would track on there, because when you're trying to staff people, so when I said, look, we all know that the psych ward got very busy and the maternity ward got very busy on full moon, like the day before, day of, and day after. So we would track those 3 days and my manager at the time, she's like, okay, this is crazy. What are you talking about? I'm like, hey, if we need to figure out the food, you're running out of food on those days. So let's just, maybe we're crazy, maybe we're not. Let's just run our own test. So we tracked the sales on them, and they were probably about, sales were up on very much so on those 3 of the days, but every once in a while we'd hit one that wasn't. So I would say it was about 75-80% accurate on the emphasis of how busy it was on those days. So, and from what the understanding how that moon works when it's full, it really just amplifies what is happening. So if you're in a real happy, euphoric state, sweet, because you're going to get more of that. If you start your day that way, that's what's going to be, you know, your meditative or whatever it is, and you're going to get more of that for the day. It's an amplifier on that. So, and the same thing too, if you've got some crap to deal with that you haven't dealt with yet, yeah, we're going to amplify that. Seems to be, it's a little worse, a little harder.
Oh my God.
Right? It's so much that.
It was like a week when I wasn't like really lining up and listening coming into that full moon. I would be everywhere. Like I would not sleep. I would be restless. Like I couldn't focus. And it was learning to pay attention to what's coming forward during that full moon energy that really made a difference with me being able to actually enjoy sleeping through the night. I always know when I don't have stuff going on, I've slept through the full moon. When I haven't slept through the full moon, we got some stuff to do.
To do, homework to do, clear it up, get it sorted out. So true. And for me, the last couple of weeks, because there's been a lot of planetary kind of business going on. So I found that this started for me about 2 weeks ago with different things that were happening. I was really being called to clean up some old stuff that was still left that I hadn't tidied up yet. And it sort of culminating at the full moon. So prior to that, the past 2 weeks, I was just doing so much work because I was getting all these peculiar, I don't know about peculiar, but we're getting, you know, some different kinds of health issues that are just dumb. And why am I getting this right now? And then I'm realizing too. So I kind of went deep meditative. And then what do? You call friends. So I called Jen. I said, text me, hey, what up? I need some clarity, because, you know, sometimes when we're going through these things, it's harder for us to see our own junk. It's easy to see everybody else's and to help other people. But when we're trying to our own selves level up into that next stage, call friends sometimes. So yeah, so Jen's like, okay, what does it look like? What are you thinking? What's on your mind? And for me, it was root chakra. I needed some work and was feeling some disconnect there. And what was it needing? And the clearest day message that was coming up to me was breath work. And I thought, I know breath work. Oh my God, I know breath work. So this breath work I've been doing for the past 2 weeks has been key. And it's really brought me back to what I knew and what I've done before when I was teaching the Qigong classes and all that, and yoga classes. You do so much breath work. There are so many kinds of breath work you can do. And you know what? They're all good. Just do them all. Whatever you can remember, just do it, you know?
Well, and it's like picking your, you know, once you learn several different tools and different techniques of breath work, I cycle through. I don't know about you, Mo, but I cycle through. And, you know, like I was just saying on TikTok earlier that we're talking about breath work today. And on the YouTube here. And when I get into a flow, I'm like, okay, I sit with that breath work, that technique for a while. But then I get squirrelish, because everybody who knows me knows I have a squirrel brain. My brain goes like this, and I start getting different ideas. And so I have to change up my my technique so that I get into it just helps me recenter, reground, so having several different techniques that you resonate with. You may not all resonate with them at the same time, but throughout your journey, you may find that, okay, you know what? This one's really sitting with me today. This one's really feeling good today. So this is what I'm going to do. And you do it for a couple days, couple weeks, a couple months, maybe even for some of you, a couple years.
It's very true. So that actually applies almost everything everywhere. Like for all the 40 years of doula work that I'm doing, that's what we do when someone's in labor and they're leveling up to a new level of, consciousness, to have a baby. So anyway, when you're going through labor, we have all these different breathing techniques that we kind of pull out of the hat going, let's try this one now. Okay, that one's good for an hour, but now she's done with that. Let's move on to the next one. So which is a real short, time span to kind of try all these different breathing techniques. And when I think about that, and these are the things too that we'll use if somebody's injured, if somebody's in stress, we're waiting for, you happen upon a scene, you're waiting for an ambulance, get that person to settle, get some breathing, get some going up, because it's a hands-off thing that you can do that doesn't, if you don't know who the people are, it's something you can safely do and help out for somebody at any given moment. And it makes a huge difference when you can just tell somebody, let's take a breath, let's breathe down to our feet. Let's just make this, we're just going to settle in for a second here. We're just going to be in the moment just right now. And that you're cared for, you're loved, you're protected, whatever it is we need to say and do at that point to settle the person into a more calm space. Breathwork is, I forget how much of a baseline it is in all health work, healing work, daily work, everything. When you're teaching children, other people, elderly, it doesn't matter. It's all breath work. And the same thing, so key for yourself, to be centered. And the breath work is just a fast track, gets you there quicker. So, why not? Right.
So I have a question for you. When you first started out on your journey, when you were in that space where this was all starting to come down and you were starting to find that, maybe there's more to life here than the way I've been living. How did you feel about breath work? Because I know when I first began, like when I first started my life really started to shift into, hey, you're going to find your mission, your purpose, and you're going to start uncovering what you've covered and buried so deep down that you throughout, for your different reasons. I hated breath work. I found it tedious. I found it boring.
Yes.
I found it
ineffective sometimes. You didn't
not
pay
even
attention
just ineffective. It was not even ineffective. It was just I was so against it.
It's almost like, give me more than that. Is this all you got? Just some breathing? Like, sounds kind of boring.
Yeah, and so I had this total bad attitude, and it was a bad attitude. I fully admit it.
Yeah,
where I was like, you know what, this is stupid.
Yeah, I would agree. In the early, when I was doing the qigong and yoga stuff back in my early 20s and stuff, or mid 20s, I would say, was doing a lot of that, and then I started to teach my own classes in my early 30s, and I just did all the stuff, and I know there was one breath work that I didn't feel what you're saying, because most of the time I kind of thought, kind of boring, but we're told we should do them, so we do them. Of course, at the age now, I'm like, oh my God, this is so powerful. But there was one that caught my attention in my 20s, and or I shouldn't say one, there was two that my instructor combined. She did alternate nostril breathing, and then which is a yoga maneuver, breath work, and then we did right after that. We would go into a humming state, or the Om humming state, where you go Om and then close the lips. So for a big long exhale breath. So when we would do that, I have like I said, we were just talking before about that busy mind, squirrel, everything stuff. I'm very much like that. I'm always busy like this, thinking and processing. Yet I'm very artistic minded. So I can access both sides of the brain on doing that. But to sit in a meditation was hard for me to sit without wiggling or being squirmy. But I tell you, that breath combined with the Om, I was done. Like the heads dropped off of the side. I'm like this. So nice. I was impressed. I was so impressed with that breath. So impressed.
See, My transition into acknowledging the power and the essence of breath work was when I figured out that it had nothing to do with the breath, me disliking breath work. It had everything to do with me disliking being with myself and having to sit with me. Because I went through this long stage where I didn't like I was like not impressed with being an intuitive or being sensitive or getting premonitions. Like being the medium and being able to like do everything I do now. I was so against it. I was really working hard to avoid it. And I did. I avoided it like the plague, guys. I fully admit. So breath work for me was one of those triggers. It triggered me. It triggered this lack of self-love, this lack of understanding or compassion and light for myself. And when I was doing breath work, I had to sit with me. And I was like, no. Right. And I didn't like the quiet because the quiet was eerie. It was eerie and uncomfortable. So that's, that was my beginning introduction to learning different techniques with breath work. Is I studied them, I learned them, but I avoided them for myself for a long time. And it wasn't until I lost my sight where breath work actually became part of the transition from being in a place of, unhappiness and, just that whole tornado of chaos. It was breath work and being outside that actually began to change my life. Yeah. And where I had no choice. When you lose your sight and you're blind, you have no choice. You can't watch TV. And at the time, technology wasn't audiobooks, and it wasn't, and I didn't know my iPhone talked to me. So I had to breathe. That's it. That's all I had.
So Jen, what is one of your favorite ones? Why don't you show them one of your favorite ones, and I'll go deal with the dinger for my cake. And
so show them Mo has a birthday.
I got a birthday I got to go to that I promised her the cake. It's a warm cake, so it has to be done warm. So
go do your cake. So I'm going to keep talking about this breath work. So when I was first in my healing crisis, and I began to realize that there was I had hit rock bottom. There was no other place to go, really and truthfully. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't in this place of calm. I was in complete turmoil. I had neuropathy from the top of my shoulders down to the soles of my feet through my hands. So, which means that standing and being still was really, really painful. So, I went outside one day and I made my way outside after walking to a couple doors and a couple walls, but I figured it out, which I find comical now for myself because I still walk into walls. So really nothing has changed, but I went outside and I just began to extend and expand my breath from my top of my chest down to the base of my diaphragm. And I placed my hands here and I just was breathing and I was just paying attention to what hand was moving the most. And when I realized that I was shallow breathing, because of the discomfort, because of the neuropathy, I had been shallow breathing for a month at least, just in that space of trauma. And so when I focused on coaching myself, and a lot of breath work is self-coaching, guys. You have to coach yourself through the process. And I find that really also unfolds a whole other spectrum that we will talk about on another show about how your self-coaching can be a part of your journey and helping you heal and balance and expand the awareness. But then I began to move my breath to my base of my bottom hand here. And that's all I did for, I don't know how long. I didn't have a timer. I couldn't have seen it even if I had, but I just sat there and I focused on breathing into this lower hand and opening up my lungs. And the first, getting back into that rhythm of breath, it didn't change my pain level, but it changed my relationship with my pain level from being totally and completely all consuming to a moment of ease. And then as I continued that over that, time outside, I went into meditative state where I hadn't planned to go. I hadn't planned to do anything but breathe, where all of a sudden I heard the drumming of the universe all around me. And I heard this really amazing beat that both came close and far away. It was as if everything had come together. So that was really my moment where I actually acknowledged the essence, the flow, and the power of breath work and how magnificent it could be to help us. So that was my first real committed experience. And so, and I often go back to this, guys. This is kind of my home base. This is where I go to when all else fails. And I can't connect with any of the other techniques that I know. I come back and it's tangible, guys, because you got your hands. You can feel your hand move. You can feel your lungs expand and contract, and you are. And it's also comforting, you know. You can go one hand here, one hand there, but this is comforting.
It is.
You got your vagus nerve.
Yeah.
You're getting back into that parasympathetic nervous state. You are also focusing somewhere else. You're not focusing on what's going on up here. You're focusing on moving one of your two hands.
Yeah.
Preferably the lower hand, guys. We want you breathing down here. So that is my first real experience of acknowledging that this is it seems so simple. And I know it seems too simple, but everything is actually more simple than we give it credit for. So Mo, what is your favorite? What was your first? Yeah, that first one.
The first one was, like I said, the one that really hit me with there's so many. I'm in love with them all. But and we, like you say, we cycle through what's our favorite one today. But the beginning one was alternate nostril breathing. So we should probably almost show people that one because it's sort of a classic move too. But there's so many, honestly. It's great. But I wanted to actually touch base on your experience too with the hands in here. When you're doing Reiki training, that's one of the things we're learned after we do 21 days. Every day we'd have, put our hands over the chakras and we would move them, down and spend like 15 minutes on each one or whatever the time frame was, or 2 minutes. And
we'll talk about that on another show. I want to talk about that 21-day cleanse connection.
Very good. And again, baseline and crazy how good it is. And also when we talk about breath work is so key in part of meditation, and they call meditation a practice because you do it as a practice for the rest of your life. So, and you're always improving it. You're always making it better. So it doesn't matter what you know today because you're going to know more tomorrow and the next day and the next day. You just got to keep doing it. But that's the point. Keep doing it. So alternate nostril breathing is a great one. It really helps clear the brain. And this was really helpful for my husband. If you can't sleep, this is a great one for not being able to sleep. It really clears the cobwebs out so you can just release and relax. So, and it's about holding the hands in a certain way. So you put 2 fingers on the forehead, and then you're just going to use your ring finger and your thumb for closing the nostrils. And so you close one nostril and then hold it and then let it out the other nostril. Hang on. Excuse me. Okay, so 2 fingers here, and then maybe I can turn this side so you can see. So we're gonna plug one side, and you're gonna breathe in through the other side. So breathing in, I can usually about a count of 5 or something. So it's breathing, or 7 is another magic number they like to use. So breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathing that in, you're gonna hold it. And you're gonna close it. 5, and then open the other side. Let your ring finger off. Exhale out the other side. Okay. And then you're going to go reverse, bring it back in that way. And then close it, thumb off, exhale out that other side. And you can, if you don't want to do a hold in between, you don't have to. The point is you're bringing it in one side like this and then out the other side, the back and out the other. You want to do at least 5 turns of that. And 5 turns gets you into a pretty decent state. Do more if you want them. If you don't have time to do 2 pairs, just do anything. So that was very good at just releasing. And if you find the mind gets a little busy again, go back to that breathing. So that was one of my very first ones. And then for people who do that meditating, they'll already know the ones where you're seeing it. These are ones, that one you can do laying down or sitting up, it doesn't matter. But the ones that there are the Om ones, those ones that people kind of wonder about, which by the way, there's science behind how the vibrations of how you say Om and how you finish with the M sound at the end, and how that's vibrating in the body, and why it is medicinal and all those things. So it's kind of cool that we've, science has proved what people have been doing for centuries. That is very good for you. So
we all get there, right? We all get to that place where it all comes together. It's a blend, right? And
so that one's
when you first did that one, what was your experience? How did it change you? How did it affect you?
It was like I felt light. I felt relaxed. I felt like not squirmy like I can get. It was really great just doing that. Yeah, I don't do it as much as I used to because I could say I'm cycling through all these other ones that, you run into somebody else who puts you through another one that you love. Just even saying that, our friend Delana, another Reiki master, she loves to do the one of the box breath, which is kind of similar,
Oh,
but
I love square breathing. That is
square
one that I
breathing.
teach
Yeah, why
all
don't
the
you just
time.
tell them how that one works? That's a great one.
So square breathing, and you guys, I'm going to suggest counts, but everybody has, like, when you're doing your breath work, it's not about straining. This isn't about straining
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
So remember that if your count is 3, you do 3. If your count is 7, you do 7. I typically start with 7, or some days it's longer. Some days I really want to get that airflow, and I really want to expand my lungs. So it is basically you're going to count yourself up
yeah.
for a certain length of time. So we'll use 4 today because it's just 4 is easy. It tends to be okay for everybody. And then you're going to hold for 4. And then we're going to exhale for 4, and we're going to hold for 4, and we're then going to go up, and then we're going to repeat this process. So it's in for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale for 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, hold for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you repeat this process. Why I use square breathing? I mean, first off, it gets me centered, and it really grounds me. That's why I use this technique personally, because it grounds me. It takes me out of the past, it takes me out of the future, and it really makes me focus here right now. It makes me come back to the now and be present. So that's why when I first learned square breathing, I was looking into it for helping people with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And what I experienced, though, when I began my square breathing was that as I was counting myself up and I was holding, and I just couldn't be anywhere else. I had to be here. If my brain went somewhere else, I would lose my count. I don't know if any of you guys have noticed, but when I'm running meditation or self-hypnosis practices, I always lose count. Because I'm, filling the space in between each number, and I'm like, oh my God, did I say 3? Did I say 4? And usually I'll repeat myself, or I'll jump ahead. That is just because I'm so in the moment of what I want to say and what I want to fill that time with. I get out of the moment.
Jen, counting is processing too. So when you're meditating, you're not processing, you're in the other side of the brain. So that's why we can lose count, I think, so easily, because we're so busy in the
it's part of
meditation.
It's like a technique that we use in hypnosis. When you count yourself down from 100 down to 1, at some point you're just going to stop counting, because you've now get into that conversion space. It's a really great way to get yourself into a deep space. But so when we're counting, we are present. We're no longer in our past, and we're no longer in our future, but we're here in this moment. So that is why I use the square breathing. I use it a lot in teaching people how to meditate, because as girly as you want to get, as distracted as you want to get, you are here, and your conscious mind has something to do. It has purpose. So instead of it running wild about the list of 1,000 things that you need to do today, it is solely focused on that count. And then the breath and that's why I like to extend the numbers, the maximize where my breath, I feel like I'm not extending myself too far where it's uncomfortable, but I'm extending myself far enough where again, it's another way of keeping focus. So that's why I use square breathing, and that's why I really enjoy it. I probably don't do it as often as I should, because I really I'm just really on a different cycle of breath right now. Like I said it earlier, like I move around. But what's another breath technique that you enjoy, Mo?
I wanted to comment on what you were saying too about that breath briefly. Actually, any of the breaths, in that especially if there's a counting process too, even though that is the processing side of the brain, but it's also the bridge. To me, it feels like it's the bridge that crosses you into the right side of the brain. The left side of the brain is that processor. The left side, or right side, pardon me, is our artsy kind of observing, enjoying the beauty, that kind of side. And it's important that we always use both. Sorry, I'm so sorry. We are done. My bad.
It always And we're going to take this moment for everybody to go smash that like button and share button, right?
Totally.
Little break here. Woo!
Yeah. Woohoo.
My phone goes off all the time and I always forget to turn it on do not disturb. It's like happens mid-session. I'm like, that's me. Or my watch will vibrate. I'm like, how is that possible? How is that freaking possible?
Rookie move. Oh my God. Okay, so
no, it's an everyday move.
Processing and observing. So if we do the counting, it takes us out of all the other processing things that are happening. I did turn you off.
So this is my life every day, guys. This is what happens all the time. And so it's just, you got to roll with it.
Good. I put the airplane. We're good. We're clear now. Clear to go. Okay. So, so what that bridging is really, where you're still processing, because that's what you kind of want to do, because you want to handle all things, but now I have to count. Okay. 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. And then we do that enough, but now we're just doing that. So it's kind of boring to count. So that also helps us move into the observing and relaxing and being more peaceful. It's a great technique.
That's the conversion point, right? Where your conscious mind and your subconscious mind come to equal balance, so they can both hear the messages. And that's what we're looking for. That's what, you guys, that's the sweet spot.
Yes.
That's the spot where you have access now to every filing cabinet in your subconscious and soul history. Like really, that's your, breath work can get you there. You don't have to do anything else.
100% on the breath work on that. So what happens then when because we're feeling now so grounded, we can get into that zone so much quicker. And it's interesting for those of you who are more intuitive or psychic or hear their spirit guides or any of that, if that's your jam, that's one of the number one messages that kind of comes to me. If I'm not breathing, they'll tell me, you need to breathe more. Like, if I'm working on a client and I'll say, what do you need me to do? In my head, I'm saying this stuff. And then they'll just say, and breathe. And especially that, I don't get so much of it anymore, but I did get it a few years when I was in the early stage, especially when I was advancing from each level. So because there's 3 main levels in Reiki. And so when you go up in the levels, the breath work is very important. And when I was working on clients, you're more intuitive and you're listening to your spirit guides or whoever it is, whatever it is to you, that's who you're listening to, these loving beings that help us out. And that was one of the things they said while I was leveling up. I look at that and went, breath work. That's what they kept telling me. Could you just breathe some more? Because I think on this earth, we're it's quite dense here. And we trying to move through this. We really do need the breath work to move through this. It's so important. I mean, if anybody's ever done even high altitude stuff, breath is like key because there's little oxygen up there. So when we're down here, it's not a lot different other than it's easier because we're used to it. But breathwork is so important. I can't say enough. So this past 2 weeks has been such a busy one for a lot of people to level up into a better frequency, a happier space. And that's what I've been called to on this last one too. So it's a bit of a buck and bronco ride at times, thinking, holy moly, all these things kind of challenge you to say, are you ready to level up? And so what about all that junk you used to worry about, that you were upset about, or that bothered you in the years gone by? So then they come to the front, and then you look at them and you move them through and you give them love and you try to, all those kinds of basic work that you do. But that breath work was what got me through that. The breath work got me through. And that wasn't until I think yesterday when I was telling this to a friend, and it dawned on me, that's what I had to do when I was doing my Reiki levels, is they were asking me, you need to do more breath work so we can work on these people, because we need to work on the person that's come to see you, and you need to breathe. So you can hold the space, as the saying says, hold the space in love, which is how your breath work will work even better, is to make sure love is in your key zone for that, your baseline. And then the healing can begin for the client and for yourself. As Jen was saying too, whenever she starts her session too, I could use a hit too. Come on, give me some. And then
I think it's just automatic, right? When you get into that space, you automatically receive. And this is one of the biggest things. Like when we get into a space of connection and community and healing, while we're holding space, we're receiving as much as the person that we're holding space for. And our breath is that indication that we can be at peace. Like I know when we went to hypnotherapy school, one of the first things that we learned was, and it was, a funny thing, because again, I talk about how simple things can be, is that your mind cannot be calm or stressed at the same time. It's one or the other. So when you're focusing on your inhale, bringing in that energy and that positivity of love, of light, of calmness, of peace, of rest, of relaxation. I mean, you got to pick your words: unity, harmony, balance. And then you're actively coaching yourself through the exhale, what you want to let go of, what you're ready to let go of, what you're ready to release. That simple breath work can shift your entire being. Physically, mentally, emotionally, and energetically, you can begin that shift. And it can be that simple. And it is a space of allowance and receiving. So that's another really cool little trick. I use this trick all the time. More than you guys know, actually, because nobody knows if you're coaching yourself in your inner mind. So breathing in that calm and out with well, for me, public speaking used to be a very anxious space for me. Like I was like, oh my God, no, I can't do it. And I'd be tongue tied. I'd be losing my words. I'd be doing it all. So I started this technique of just coaching myself through my inner thoughts, that I was breathing in that calm and grounded energy, and that I was centered, and I would breathe out any of the anxiety or stress or that I was feeling. And within like 10 breaths, I could see everything just all of a sudden. I wasn't seeing blurry. I wasn't feeling like I didn't have anything to talk about, or I wouldn't be able to access that conversation. So that's another really quick but powerful breath technique that you can use wherever you are. And this one's great for kids, guys, too. Right? This technique is really great for kids. I've worked with kids in hypnosis, and this is a very, like, I often get these messages. I used to go to a high school and work with high school kids on how to meditate, how to center, based on expanding their study habits. But this is what I taught them, was this breath work. And my connection at that school would tell me 4 years later, those kids were still coming in and saying, tell Jen I still do my breath work and it's working. Like, so there are some really little simple things that you can do that can really change any moment that you're in, whether you need to really go to the square breathing, the one nostril on and off, or just in your mind coaching yourself, focusing the intent of your inhale, the intent of your exhale is equally just as powerful. For the last 2 weeks, she talked about going through some stuff. What breathwork technique did you use over these last 2 weeks, especially coming up to this lunar eclipse and this full moon, that you found settled you? Calmed you, opened you.
Sometimes too, because it's been a busy last couple of weeks as well. So sometimes just exactly what you're saying, sometimes that deep breath in and exhaling, just that, guys, honestly, don't underestimate that power. So one of the things I realized too at that point, I thought, oh my gosh, I am doing way too much shallow breathing again, because when I'm trying to draw my breath in, why am I not getting that? Like, you should be able to, once you do breath work for a while, especially with yoga and those kinds of things, you start to take that breath and you can take that big, like, there, it's all in, right? And then you can really get a long breath. And that wasn't as long as I have been able to do it. But if you start, what you see people who are divers, they want to go down deep, and they'll, like, for swim divers, I mean, those kinds of people too, they're having to do deep breaths. Like, you want to expand your lungs, and you also want to really push out the exhale, get the stale crap out,
the old energy out, the old air out. Yeah.
And there's ways to do that too. There's ones where people will take your big breath in. And one of one's my yoga instructor that I had years ago, she always loved to do, as when you hold your breath in, she would do some pounding on the chest. She started at the bottom under the rib cage, and then do it in 3 sections, right? That one. So under the rib cage, really banging around those lungs at the bottom, and then exhale, then do it again. Big breath in, hold it, and then do the same thing on the midsection, then on the top section. So that was another good one. Another one we would do is, if somebody would take a breath in, we would do it as partners. Person would take a big breath in, just kind of lean over a little bit, just kind of round the shoulders and drop them a little bit. And the person would just cup their hands, boom, 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 banging all over those lungs, and really help lose some crap out of there. And then when the person was finished holding their breath, they would just exhale and slowly move down a little more. And that helped the person who was doing the cupping to stop, because, okay, that's a sign she's at all, or exhale out. Those are very powerful ones. But I think what would be the one you probably use the most, that we should all use, that should be part of all the breathing techniques, every single one, is that inhale. And is it, and when you look at the neck, So when you're breathing in, you should get a concave here, right in this spot here. So when you're breathing in, and you want to direct the breath in, so it'll just kind of cave in a little. And when you direct the breath, it should be kind of just down the spine at the back, lower down. And that will oxygenate those lungs more than you can imagine. So, and it should be a noisy sounding breath. So it's that.
Yeah. And it's not all comfortable, guys. When you get there, like as you learn these different techniques, it's not always comfortable.
Right. And I realized how much how much shallow breathing I've been doing, because it's kind of sneaks in where you kind of forget your
You just get going. You're like,
what's going on. And then I realized when I went back to making sure that inhale was through the back, so it's through your nose, and then exhale your mouth. But when you breathe in, so drawing that breath to the back really oxygenated through the back side of the lungs that aren't always getting enough air. And I actually felt them tingling, and I went, oh my God, that's how bad I'd forgotten to keep my breath going. So lesson learned on that one. But it is easy to get caught up. So definitely that breath was so good. I'm so happy to be back into that breath zone of doing those things. And my husband, he used to be a bodyman. So he used to do a lot of sandblasting and painting. So it was a little dusty, very hard in the lungs. And he hasn't done it now for over 15 years. But if colds and flus come by, he'll get the extended cough because it's come from before. But when I get him doing these breaths, he's like, oh my gosh, what a difference. This is great. And he can breathe more, and his oxygen is better, and he coughs less. I know that there's other things we do for coughs, but as well, it's always a full package for wellness. But breath work is your baseline every time. You can imagine if you have no tools, so I have no herbal stuff to deal with, or I have no equipment, no anything, and all you could do to help somebody was breath work. That's amazing.
It is. It's like
amazing.
When I've gotten in my last cold that I had was over 1.5 years ago, and it was a weird one, but I got into a moment where my mindset got a little anxious because there was a lot going on 1.5 years ago, as we all know. But my mindset started to drift down that place, and I could feel everything getting out of control. And it was actually breath work, and that breathe in that calm. I think it was calm or ease that I used that day, but it was breathing out the anxiety. And I actually did that for about an hour. And I noticed as that hour progressed, I actually shifted, and I found myself come back into my body and recognize that my mind was starting to play on me. It was starting to amplify things and convinced me that I was perceiving symptoms that I was having, that they were much, they were bigger, and that I was going down a really ugly, I was going down a different road than I actually was. But it gave me enough time to reset myself, to reevaluate how I was feeling in that moment.
Yeah.
And when I got to that point where I could reevaluate, I recognized that, okay, no, I wasn't feeling as bad as I was telling myself I was. Because if I was feeling that bad in that moment, I would have definitely gone into the hospital. I would have taken different medical steps, but I actually recognized that I could breathe with ease. I was feeling my temperature was fine. I just started to get into my head a little bit too much. It got heady. And so that just got me out of my heady place and allowed me to kind of check in with my body. And I realized that, oh, okay, you know what? I'm not feeling as bad as I was an hour ago. I'm now feeling a little bit better. So I can sit with this, and I can reevaluate from a different perspective instead of the loop that was happening. And that's another thing about breathwork. It can get you out of your mental, emotional loop that is going on and help you reevaluate where you are. Check in, right? Catch, check in, change, and give you the 3 C's that allow you to go, okay, yes, this is actually how I'm feeling right now, so I need to deal with this. Or, oh, wait a minute, that's how I thought I was feeling based on my past experience, based on my outside environment. And now what is my internal environment actually going on? So that is why I wanted to talk about breathwork today, because it's so powerful and so unique. What's another technique that you have, Mo? I have another one, but I want to hear about. Do you have another one that is one of your favorites that you find that when you get a little in the heady space, brings you back into yourself?
Yeah, I think if the heady space ones were be the ones I've mentioned, like I say, any of the box breath or the alternate nostril breathing, those are the ones that get me settled, get me back. And again, even just putting your hands here and breathing that in, make sure I'm always breathing into the back of my throat. Those ones that we've said are pretty much great for quick, just settle people. In fact, by the way, if you're helping someone else, sometimes you can just put the hand here, and this is very incredibly soothing with the breath and get them following a breath through you. Ones that are just probably quick medicinal kind of hits would be more it's the 6 sniffs in. Has anybody done that one? So yeah, right. And sometimes you can have movements, you don't, doesn't matter, whatever, just do them. So you're doing 6 short sniffs in through your nose and then a big exhale out. And you'll find if you can't do the full 6 sniffs, then you're too much shallow breathing is going on. So you want to be able to breathe in quite a bit. You can't. When my husband first started doing this one, he would cough after the second or third, like because he was just, his lungs weren't fully expanding and using them all. So he'll do those anytime he's driving along. He's got that. And sometimes they have movers that are just
driving, actually.
That's another one, because that really helps move the lungs. But you don't have to do that if you're driving or whatever else. Breathing is great when you're driving, because then you become again more clear-minded, back to that sweet spot you were talking about, where you're in between both of the sides of the brain, where you're relaxed and calm and observing, but you're processing and aware.
Well, the 6 sniffs in is actually, I use that with driving too, especially when I was driving the coast as much, when the traffic, people get angry, right? You start feeling everybody's anger if you're empathic. On the road is an interesting place to be for those who are empathic.
That's another topic, isn't it? Road driving? Oh my God. Right?
So, and that's 6 steps. I do that when I'm really feeling the external environment on the road. I will do that to bring myself back to me, because usually I'm not feeling stressed. I find, driving actually very therapeutic, but I do not find it therapeutic when I am tapping into everybody's energy. Like when I first got my sight back and I started driving again, I could not believe how anxious I felt. It was unreal. And I had to step back and go, is this your anxiety? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I am picking up on everybody's anxiety on the road, because everybody's got a place to be. Everybody needs to be there right now, like today. And so I was really absorbing that in my excitement to be back on the road and driving again and seeing again. I had to actually recheck myself on my bubble, my breath work while I was driving, so that I could feel how I wanted to feel, so I could be in my space, so that I could be observant and react and responsive versus reactive. So I love that breath work. I haven't talked about that in a long time though, because I don't even think about it. I just start doing it. And that's the thing. You guys are going to have a checklist, and that checklist of your breath work techniques, you're just going to find the ones that work for you when they work for you, and you'll start to do them. And then you'll step back one day and be like, oh, I was just automatically doing that. Look at me go. Got my pattern happening.
I totally got to talk about the road thing. 2 seconds. We're just going to digress on this quote. So here's I want everybody to try this when you get home. Whenever you're out driving, you got to try this. Okay. So when you get into somebody who cuts you off or just did a bone-ass move, which we can all do them. Okay. We all make mistakes on the road I wish there was a sign at the back that said, sorry, I can hit a button and it lights up. Sorry about that. Oops. But we can't, we don't have it. We try to wait. Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. But okay, so let's say someone does a dumb move that is infuriating and you're annoyed. What's going to happen if you bite into that bad mood and you reciprocate and bounce that back to that, you get 2 more. Okay, or sometimes 3 more. It's a 3 rule actually. So you have to be if you instead reverse it and go, well, I hope that guy's a better day. I hope he's all right. Or send some happy pants, whatever situation to him, stay in a positive state, you get 3 more nice drivers, and they say, and they let you in, and they do this, and there's all these, so you get the gifts. So, and you don't have to trust me on that. You just try it yourself. It's crazy. It works like a hot damn. So
now Maureen is the guy who can be going somewhere and she'll oh, I'll have a close parking lot, please. And she's the guy who creates that, because it's just like this. So she, when she's really in that space, there's no questioning it. There's going to be a parking spot there. And I've gone places with Mo and been like,
No,
How
and
is
money
this
in the
possible?
meter.
Like, how is this possible?
Money in the meter too. There's money in the meter. That's my best day when I get, oh, there's a full amount of money in the meter. Like that's happened. So when my husband would get, oh, we're never going to find a parking spot. I'm like, okay, stop. You're not helping. So if I go on my own, I always get a parking spot up front. I always get money in the meter. Well, always, about, I would say 80% of the time, not always, but there's always, I would say 99% of the time I get a parking spot up front. 99.9, I'm thinking. I'm trying to remember. I can't even remember the last time I didn't get a close parking spot. So when I have my husband, when I first started doing this years ago, and then he would come with me and go, my odds are dropping. What are you doing? You're in the car. You're being negative. Oh, never going to find one. I'm like, oh, whoa. Said, you're dropping my odds. This is not good. I'm running on a pretty good roll here. So I said, you can't talk like that when you're in the car. You can do that when you're driving, but not in my car, because I want a parking spot out front. I don't want to be circling the place for 10 minutes looking for one. So anyway, he would laugh and go, oh, that's silly, And then he started doing it. Well, now he just can't believe it. And we adopt that principle to other things. So now our odds are good, because now I'll say we always get the parking lot.
And your language is energy, guys. Your language is energy. Your thought is energy. All of it comes to play. So when you
apply that everywhere,
collect, but there's the collective power right there. If two people focus on one thing, create such an amazing outcome. Imagine as we grow and expand, and through all of our abilities to connect worldwide, how much change we can begin to make when we start to focus on the same, but also be open to that same result. And that is the thing. That is the thing about everything, is we can manifest and we can create through our breath, we can create through our thought, we can create through our energy, but it has to line up. If you have hesitation or doubt or scarcity or lack in there, or just even a moment, second of thinking it's not going to happen, you have now influxed that energy, that percentage of it, that imagine it as a pinhole tunnel that you've now all created. It's getting bigger and bigger, but then when you start to think oppositely, or somebody around you thinks oppositely, it starts to it starts to close in on its the odds are dropping. So and that's the one thing that breath work, when you get used to the different styles, is that you can reframe and redirect your thoughts, your energies, your mindset around the things, your ability to create and manifest what it is that you want to create and manifest. That can all be done through breath work as well. What's that, Mo?
I know, I got the face. I just remember another one. So good. You'll love this one. Okay, so this one is great, because we did it in the classes and stuff too, but it was really great if you're at an event with a bunch of people or in a room, and if there's a tension going on. So what you're doing, so it's the eye of the needle one, when you exhale through that. I don't know if anybody's done that one, but so when you breathe in that nice big long deep breath, and then when you exhale, you have to exhale slow, because you got to breathe. You got to exhale through this eye of a needle, this imaginary eye of a needle.
I don't like this one. Okay, I am not good at this one.
Okay, I'm going to tell you, this is so good. So when you breathe through this, obviously you can't go fast because it spills out around it. So you got to keep going slow through that eye of the needle. Now, what happens if you practice this a couple of times in a room full of people where the stress is kind of up here? If you do this, it starts to come down. And if the great news would be if we can get a few more people in different parts of the room start to do that, you will be amazed how it settles the room. At least it settles you for sure. But with the more people that are settled, people buy into that. Because you have to remember, those kinds of calming, loving frequencies are addictive. We love them. They make us feel better. They're stronger and more powerful than negative, crappy, fearful, stressful energy. So loving, tuned energy is more effective. So, and more powerful. But yeah, it's just, you just got to stay settled, and what you find yourself become calmer, and it's incredibly the power. And if more people in that room did that, everybody settles down, because there's nobody left doing it. I don't know if I'm explaining it.
Well, and as you kind of, it's like owning the room, right? You walk into a room and you're owning the room, and you're shifting the collective consciousness of that room. You're inviting that room to step into their higher selves, into their higher vibration. And those are people who may not know how to do that, or may have never tried it. They will actually, it takes them out of their comfort zone because they're comfortable where they are. But all of a sudden they start to feel themselves, their energy bouncing off people, and it's not being received. And all of a sudden it gives them an opportunity to either step in and be a part of that higher collective energy, or to maybe be on the outside but and move in when they're ready, but it does help them understand. It give them a bridge to get there. And that's the thing. It's about creating that space. When you're owning the space of a room or your breath work, through your breath work, you are creating an opportunity, but you're not responsible for those who choose to take you up on that opportunity. It's just about you creating that opportunity for yourself. And one of the breath work.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, as I said, with that breath too, I've used that one in when on airplanes as well. If anybody, for people who are empaths and intuitives and stuff, I found I would had a little bit of, I would get like nauseous on planes now and then, but I thought, was it just the altitude thing up and down or whatever it is? And I thought, I'm not afraid to fly, so I could totally not. And they go, well, you probably are. No, I'm really not. I'm not afraid to fly. I'm good with that. But what I figured out over the years, what it had been, is that I was picking up too much energy, but always who are people who are afraid to fly. And I had to really put myself into it with some breath work, get myself into a nice little protective bubble. But that eye of the needle one is really good to help settle other people on the plane. And often I would do a lot of breath work on the planes, and I would feel, and you find that usually it's when the altitude drops. And I kept thinking, well, maybe it's just because the altitude's dropping, you feel kind of not so great. But that's when the people are most afraid, because they're worried.
I love freaking doing like meditation on airplanes. I will tell that story another day, but I love my meditating on airplanes, because it's like, oh, I'm literally soaring right now. And that just is a whole other realm of like,
it is
astroplaning out of my body into the
Oh,
one day there was
talk about that.
Yeah, we will do a show on astroplaning and the astral world. Yes, 100%. One of my favorite breath works, and this is my kick right now. This is why I say it's one of my favorites. I mean, I love them all except for the breathe out through the needle. That one, I should love it. I fully admit I should love it. I admit it, guys, but
you have to watch the effect in the room, because it's more fun watching what happens in the room. The power of that.
I'm a very patient person with the world around me. I have, but my own self-patience can be tested, and that breath work tests my patience, because I'm like, let's do this. Like, I get into that like go big or go home mode, and that breath does not allow me to be in my go big or go home mode that I can get into. So I was flying. I definitely was. Yeah, right. It's so amazing when you meditate and you and you fly. There's just something. There's a different element to it. For those of us who like to live up here, it's like, boom, gone. See ya. And this is why everybody used to laugh, because I used to love flying so much. It's because I had some really amazing meditations while I'm flying. Totally digressing here. So the breath of life, I love this breath of life. I love this for clearing the chakras, connecting in, clearing like every aspect, physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, for opening up into your light body, receiving those downloads. This breath really has helped me download the light coding that has been like hovering up here, and it's ready. And I use a 7 count, but you and I use hands. So I imagine breathing from the edge of my root chakra, and I pull that breath up to the crown, and I hold, and then I bring the energy down. Excellent. My exhale. So you're creating that connection into your the pineal gland here, your third eye, crown. And it is this motion. And I actually do this motion. And I do this motion everywhere. So yes, in the grocery store, when I need a second to reset, or just get my memory back into place, because apparently we're getting to that place where sometimes you forget why you walked into a room. But you coming up, and I sit there and I do this for like 7 to 10 breaths. If I really want to get into a deep space fast, but I don't want to self-coach myself, I don't want to be my hypnotherapist, I use that to get myself into that meditative space quickly, easily, and automatically. And I set an intention, guys. So my intent will be whatever it is I need in that moment. Sometimes it's just to clear, cleanse my energy, my light body. If I've been around a heavy person, I do this breath work. To clear out, right? It's so good. Yeah. I have variations on that one too that I like to do when I do that one. So I'm feeling the energy up. Sometimes I just sit with it at the root chakra for a little bit.
And then what I'll do is I'll bring it up to each chakra and then down, and then bring it up to this chakra and then down.
Yeah.
And bring it up to this chakra and then down, and all the way up to the forehead chakra, down, and then with the breath, with each time with this, and then all the way up and then up and then up. And I have my palms like this. Okay.
Pushing, opening, allowing, receiving. So
And
when your palms are down, you're
sky.
bringing in. When your palms are up, you're receiving, right, guys?
You're receiving. Yeah. And it's called reaching the sky. These are a lot of Qigong breaths. The heavenly breath is listed in the Qigong work, as well as like the one with holding the sky or that kind of thing. But do all of those. And you know what? We get wrapped up in, am I doing something right? I don't know. Just do it, because you can't really do a lot wrong with breath work. You know,
no, you can't. You're breathing. You're expanded. Like, we naturally breathe, guys. It's there.
Yeah.
But we're now conscious. We're aware. We're in tune. We're observing. And if you do nothing else except for witness and observe your breath, you will learn so much about yourself. You will learn where you are in this moment, or what you're carrying from yesterday, or what you are worried about for tomorrow. You will learn by observing and witnessing. If you do nothing else, observing and witnessing how you breathe naturally and normally, well, that alone is more than enough to help you get through to the next step of your journey. Yeah. And saying that, Mo, we're at the top of our time here. So is there any message that you'd like to leave everybody with? Any suggestions, any last tools and tricks around breath work that you may have tucked away in that beautiful filing cabinet of yours?
I think if I was to say anything, is like the number one thing is don't forget the breath work. Because if anything, I mean, you can learn all these different things. And I found when I was in my 20s, I would want to learn it perfectly. In my 30s, I wanted to learn it perfectly. And that's great. Learn these techniques perfectly. Please do. But if you don't, it's okay too. I'm at the age where I'm going, I think I'm going to breathe like this today, because that's what I feel like my body's asking me to do. So listen to what you need. If you need to dance around or move around and shake it up, and with your breath work, that's what you need to do. But I'm going to leave you with, please don't forget the breath work. It's your baseline for everything.
I love that. I love that, because I need that reminder. I actually have a Post-it note on my wall that says breath work. So that's how and actually on my computer too. I'm not gonna lie, I have Post-it notes everywhere. So thank you, Mo, for sharing your journey with us. And I have no idea what keeps falling, but apparently I may have.
Somebody's telling you something. You might want to figure that out.
I know, right? I might have to be like, hey, you're flying later on today. Better get with it, girl.
Always a joy.
So thank you, everyone. So I hope that you have the most amazing day. The thing I'm going to leave you with is that you are able to do this wherever you are. Breathwork is something that you take with you every day. So it is something that travels with you. It's at home with you, where it's in the car with you. It's in the grocery store with you. So if you're having a moment and you're in a space where you need to dive into something, people won't notice that you were doing it. You can do this. I mean, you can talk aloud if you want, but you can do this wherever, whenever. And it's a beautiful gift to give yourself. So, okay, guys, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. We will talk to you soon. Cheers.
All right. Bye, everybody.